On December 12, 1910, Dorothy Arnold, a 25-year-old socialite and heiress, went missing in the middle of the day while she was out shopping. Her disappearance was high profile. Various media outlets wrote articles about her case, and it captured national attention. At around 11 a.m., Dorothy left her family residence to go out shopping for a dress to wear for a party. Before leaving, her mother offered to come with her to help her pick out a dress, but Dorothy kindly refused and said she'll be okay on her own. She further stated that she will call her if she finds a suitable dress to get her opinion. Before heading to her destination, Dorothy walked through 5th Avenue, then made a stop at 59th Street to buy chocolate at a grocery store. After that, she made another stop at a bookstore just a couple of blocks away and bought a book. As she walked out the store, she encountered her friend, Gladys King. Both were going to the same party, and they had a brief chat together. At 2:00 p.m., after their little chat, they went separate ways. Dorothy walked through Central Park, and from there, she was never seen again. When she failed to return home that early evening, her family grew panicked later. They called all of her close friends to ask whether they are with their daughter, but all of them said no. Shortly after midnight, one of Dorothy's friends, Elise Henry, called back to the family just to check if Dory had returned home. Now this is where it got strange. Dorothy's mother straight up lied to her and said that her daughter had returned home late at night and is now safe in her bedroom with a terrible migraine. She used this excuse so that the friend wouldn't insist on talking to Dorothy. Now, why did she do this? Well, the family wanted to keep everything to themselves. They feared that if they told anybody outside their family about the real situation, it could leak to the media and cause public embarrassment. Not only did they lie to her close friends, they didn't even report her disappearance to the police. Instead, they called their family lawyer, John Keith, and hired a private investigator. They first started their investigation in Dorothy's room. They found that all of her personal belongings and clothes were still in her room, except the ones that she was wearing the day she went missing. But there was one thing that caught their attention, and it was letters with foreign postcards and folders for transatlantic streamliners on her desk. So with the clues they discovered, they concluded that she may have likely left the country. They called the boat companies to check if a name Dorothy had been aboard their ship, but it turned up nothing. The detective agencies sent numerous investigators overseas to search boats arriving from New York. They searched for passengers who matched Dorothy's description. Unfortunately, after almost a week, they came up empty-handed. After this initial search, they tried looking for her at various places where she occasionally went: restaurants, parks, and even her friends' homes. With numerous failed attempts to find her, the detectives brought up the possibility that she may have had a run-in with the law, or even worse, that she may have gotten into a terrible accident. They searched various prisons, hospitals, and even morgues. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything. Since the detective agency failed to find any good leads, the family finally reported the case to the police. Still though, they wanted to keep this away from the public eye, so they requested to keep the investigation private. But with so few resources and information that they had, after a couple of weeks, the police too didn't find anything significant about her whereabouts. Finally, on January 25th, almost 6 weeks after her disappearance, the family decided to make public her case and hoped that someone out there would have any clues about her whereabouts. They even put out a $1,000 reward. By putting this case in the public eye, there were some major drawbacks. For the next couple of weeks, the family received phone calls that claimed to be Dorothy, but this all ended up being a cruel joke. What's even worse, the family received 2 ransom letters coming from 2 different kidnappers demanding huge amounts of money. The timing of these letters and the fact that it came from 2 different parties made the whole thing seem quite odd. Initially, the family believed this and was willing to pay any amount of money just to see their daughter again, but the letters were proven to be false. I mean, if the kidnapper wanted to get in touch with the family, that person would have done so earlier before everything went public. So they concluded that the letters may likely have come from a random person. But the family did receive a letter that surprised them, A postcard supposedly from Dorothy herself was mailed to them. The card read, "I am safe," and the handwriting resembled Dorothy's. Could it be that she heard the news that her family was looking for her and wanted to send the postcard so they could stop worrying? Well, after a close examination of the letter, Dorothy's father, Francis Arnold, was positive that it wasn't from her. So what are the possible explanations of her disappearance? The first one is that she wanted to be independent so she could focus on her writing career. She dreamt of being a professional writer, and the weeks before she went missing, she sent a short story to a magazine company but got rejected. She sent another one, but that too was rejected. According to her friend, she was quite bitter and depressed when she received the bad news that her writing didn't get accepted. She even wanted to move out of the house and rent an apartment alone so she could focus on her writing. But her parents didn't allow her to leave, so this could be a reason that made her cut ties with her family and disappear. Another theory was that she eloped with a man named George Griscom Jr. She became close to him, but her family didn't approve of the relationship, so in retaliation, she disappeared to live with him. After further investigation, they found out that on September 10th, Dorothy told her parents that she was going to meet with her former college friend in Boston. Instead, her parents later discovered that she sold some of her jewelry to finance her stay in a hotel. The pawn shop clerk who was working at the time confirmed that Dorothy visited the store to sell a couple of her jewelry and even had invoices of the transaction. Authorities questioned George, but he was in Italy at the time of her disappearance, so it was impossible that both were able to communicate with each other. However, the family didn't believe him. They thought that this was all in their plan to be together. Her going missing while he was on vacation would be a perfect alibi for him to be cleared as a suspect. But without any hard evidence that Dorothy indeed went to George, the police couldn't arrest him. Again, these are all just theories, but in 1916, 5 years after her disappearance, a man by the name of Edward Glenoris, who was in prison at the time for attempted extortion, admitted that he was paid $250 to bury a young woman's body in December 1910, around the same time Dorothy went missing. He told authorities that he had met up with a man named Little Louie in New York. They then drove to meet up with two other men. The two men paid them to load up an unconscious woman in their car and drive them to a house in New Jersey. Edward said that the woman was Dorothy, and the following day, the two men called him and Little Louie again, and this time, they discovered the woman was dead and was told to bury her in exchange for money. When the police asked him which house basement they buried the body in, he couldn't give an exact location, but provided the description of the house. And so the authorities went out to various homes matching the description. In one of them, the police discovered an area where the floor had been broken up just enough to fit a human being. The owner of the house said that the floor had been broken to fix a gas pipe. Regardless of this, the police still proceeded to dig up the area. Unfortunately, when they were done digging, it was indeed just a gas pipe. But there was another possible lead in the case. It was believed that Dorothy was pregnant and secretly wanted to get an abortion. There was a home in Pennsylvania that was used as a private clinic where young women would go for abortions. The place became notorious and was known as the House of Mystery, since it was said that a lot of women went missing after visiting the clinic. The police raided the home and found two oversized furnaces in the basement. It was run by Dr. Meredith, a nurse, and another doctor named Dr. Lutz. The police arrested all three. Dr. Lutz claimed that Dr. Meredith told him that he cremated one of his patients after an unsuccessful abortion. However, Dr. Lutz didn't specify whether that person was Dorothy. Also, with only ashes being left behind and the primitive forensic technology at the time, it was impossible to prove that it was Dorothy who had been cremated. After a grueling investigation of the case, the family accepted that Dorothy was likely kidnapped and killed. Her being from a wealthy family who had many connections, somebody may have done this out of revenge. But there is a huge hole in this theory. Dorothy went missing during the busiest time of the day, so if somebody were to have kidnapped her, there would have been many witnesses. Unless, of course, the suspect lured her to a secluded area in the park. Nonetheless, to this day, there are still no clues to close this case.